I don't know. We'll figure that out.
I can help you with that. I know how to do it.
Thank you, Ray.
Because if it is recorded, I do want access to it. I don't want it recorded and kept to a subset of people.
We're being recorded.
Why would
now,
we do that?
so on the record. All right, we're recording, and I assume that we still want to add things to the calendar, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to put that here. You said yes. Yes, we do. All right, cool. I'll close that out later. Collaborative development model. Have we talked about this one in any detail?
Could I ask a point of order question first?
Of course.
So in some other meetings I participate in, the way we sort of decide on as we walk down this list you're currently walking down is sort of on their, what's happened since last meeting and their readiness. And one issue with the process we currently have in doing that is if someone, for example, me, had prepared some pull requests, which I have, and they are ready to be adopted and accepted, at least in these other groups, the sort of, hey, we're ready to go and someone's willing to raise their hand and talk about it and let's decide it, get sort of first dibs. And that doesn't work in our process because only maintainers get to put things on this list you're looking at. And I'm not a maintainer, so I couldn't add it to the agenda, so to speak.
You couldn't put anything on?
No, we discussed this last time. This list you're looking at, only maintainers can affect. So I've created PRs, made them ready for approval, but you can't see them unless you click on the pull request button up ahead. You don't see them on the project board. The maintainers have to put them on the project board.
Well, pull requests, I don't think show up on the project board anyway, because it's going to.
Well, they should. They're issues. They're a higher priority issue. They're issues that are ready to be accepted.
I mean, in our language, it might be an issue, but I don't think it's a GitHub issue, right? There's GitHub issues like you don't see the pull request in here.
Yes, they are. If you look at my pull request, you'll see they're one number greater than the last issue. If you made another issue, it would be one number greater than that. Inside GitHub, they're no different. Their difference is their pull requests are issues ready to be accepted as opposed to just issues.
Okay.
Pull requests are the answers to the issues.
Okay, my mistake then. All right, so I'm fine however we want to work as a group. If we want to roll through pull requests first and then look at issues, that's fine. And you don't care.
Yeah, and again, not pull requests, not all pull requests ready for adoption. So at least in this other group, which I will admit I influence how it operates because I'm the chair of it, but you do pull requests ready for adoption first because they should be quick. And if they're not, you punt them out and say, all right, we'll talk about it more next week and put it under issues for discussion. Then you do pull requests for discussion. Those are the ones that are, hey, they're not ready to go yet, but you want to talk about them. And that tends to be the ones we were just talking about. And then you do, and any other topics, which should be the issues that no one's even made any suggestions for yet. And that just, the reason for that order is you get the stuff that's ready to roll out of the way quick. And again, if it's not ready to roll, you shut it down quick and kick it into one of the other sections. But if you do it at the end, you sometimes don't get to them.
Okay, so it sounds to me like you want your Vex flag use cases addressed.
Well, actually, I actually want the one, there's one of them I did earlier than that. I forget which one it was. I mean, it's a really stupid one, but it's there.
PGB one or the governance one or?
No, the, let's see. So ready for adoption are the charter one. So number 20, I think, is the oldest one ready for adoption, which is just the charter copied in. So and when I originally did it, I did it in a subdirectory. People reviewed it and said, hey, why don't we make it up top? So I moved it up top.
All right. Okay, so any objections to this? Are people ready to discuss it? Is anybody not ready to discuss this?
Silence is acceptance.
Okay, are there any objections?
I'll just state that I read through it. It is basically the charter that came out of the PGB or PBG, and I don't see any reason to make changes to it.
So just a quick question. So copy it to where? I'm just curious. Are you going to put it in the readme.md, charter.md? I would suggest it should be right in the readme. So as soon as you go to the project, it's right there.
Okay, whether we decide to change the README to reference it, I think we might already do that. I'm not sure. But this was the request to have the actual charter in the GitHub, this GitHub repo, as opposed to somewhere else. And so that's where I put it.
Okay.
Right now, it's its own file. It's not a section of the README. It's its own file.
Yeah. Okay. I'm no whatever. I do know, the kind of standard place is charter.md. It's
Actually, well, let's look at my PR and see what I called it.
It's right now called
Pace.
PaceCharter.md.
Yeah.
Because it is.
But you're in the Pace project, so it's kind of like redundant.
You propose, well, actually, it used to be called CharterMD when it was or it used to be called Pace.md when it was in the Charter subdirectory of the Pace project. And then when we argued about where to put it, I put both in the title. Would you like me to change its title to just Charter?
Just suggesting it.
That's a convention that makes sense to me. I mean, either way, people will know it's a charter, and if it's redundant because it says Pace, then let's just call it charter.
So do I have does the group empower me to make that change, or and go ahead and put it in? Well, actually, I can't put it in anyway. So I will agree to rename it. Do we then need to review it again next week and then you can approve it and put it in? Or
No.
Can we agree that the maintainers can put it in once I change the name?
Okay with putting it in.
I would just change it. Yeah. Just change it and then we'll merge it. Like, I don't think we even need to talk about it again.
All right, so I will make the change, put out an email, and then you guys, I won't be able to approve it. One of you guys will have to. And you'll put it in.
That's fine. All right. Perfect.
All righty.
20, now what?
And
So
the next oldest one is Dave's contributing, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
21.
All right, are we actually ready to discuss this? Looks like we've had quite a bit of discussion already.
I believe you reviewed it, Adam, since you
Yep.
at least contributed Sarah's GitHub username for it.
Yep.
I don't think there's been any other meaningful feedback. Chet had a links thing, which I fixed.
Okay. So I think if all those have been addressed, then I'm happy with it the way it is. Does anybody object to that? Nope. All right. Just commenting on these so that we know what to do with them. All right, what's next?
23, which would be the VEX flag use cases.
VEX, okay.
So I put out an email. This might be easier to read than the changes because it is several commits. I should have merged. I should have whatever you call it when you squish them all together. But this is proposed use cases specifically for the vulnerability, exploitability, exchange documents using a CSAF VEX format. And the use cases to show what's being considered over in the SBOM VEX world is what are called the flags, why you might want to do something different depending on why the creator of the VEX said, hey, you don't need to worry about this, it won't affect you. If it's because the software is not there, you might, well, again, you can read the use cases yourself or you can read the explanation yourself. There's the sort of key points are there, so if you want to scroll down, there's some pictures that are really the sort of key aspect of the document. And this is just the README sort of explaining the overall, the actual use cases we'll get into in future PRs. But in one case, one company might say, I don't care about these flags. I'm not going to do anything anyway. I'm going to believe the vendor when they say I'm not affected. I'm going to ignore it. So that's that picture. You scroll down to the next picture. But some more sophisticated companies might say, yeah, I mean, I'm going to trust them if they say the software isn't there. If it's like even the component's not there or the component's there, but the software that is the actual thing that the CV is against isn't there, those first two, I'll trust them for that. But if they, just because they say it can't be gotten at by the adversary, I'm going to at least watch it a little closer. And I'm going to, go tell my stick shifter to go tell my devices to go add these things to watch a little closer. And if they say, even though they say I'm not affected, but they say I'm not affected because they're doing mitigations or because, yeah, they're keeping the code out of the execute path somehow. They just don't happen to ever call it. I don't trust those. I know hackers can get at both of those. So I'm going to go start threat hunting, and I'll put in a little playbook that's going to go spin up Kestrel and do stuff. And that's one combination of flags that, company one might do. And then if you scroll down a little further, company two might do a different set of actions on those same flags. They might still do nothing. They might trust the vendor if they literally don't even include Log4j in their software. They'll say, great, you didn't include it. We'll not bother doing anything. But if they say, yeah, we included Log4j, but we don't happen to include the actual routines that have the issue, you might say, hey, I'm going to go spin up some third-party tools to go do a external analysis and make sure the executables aren't in there. Same thing, you might do the monitoring, increased monitoring we talked about before, but they might choose to not spin up threat hunting in the fourth one over, even though the guy before it did. And so the purpose of the sort of lots of text in the rest of the README and lots of stuff, even way more stuff in the use cases themselves, in this particular case is just show the difference of, hey, these flags allow the automation, allow different companies to do different security policies with their automation, depending on the state of these flags. And so that's what all this stuff is. I realize there's a lot there, and everyone says, yeah, Duncan, this is all great, but like you threw too much at us all way too quickly. Give us a week to review it. I'm fine with that too. But if you say it's fine and want to stick it in, that's fine also. There was one comment, Dave Kemp commented that I have a line in there somewhere about a link to where all this stuff came from. It's out of some work that NDI did before and CISA has taken over and doing now. And there's this thing called the healthcare POC for SBOMs and VEXs, and the healthcare proof of concept, which is a bunch of hospitals and a bunch of medical device manufacturers are now in phase 3 of their work. And they have this evolving set of use cases of their own. This is an extension of some of their use cases plus some other stuff that I've added in, and I didn't have the reference in there yet. Dave did supply some references I could use, but the actual reference I'm using is a document that got reviewed in this morning's VEX meeting that isn't quite available yet to everybody else. So I was going to ideally wait until they actually publish that document, and then I could link to it directly.
Adam, can you scroll down just a little bit to the too far? Yeah, right about there. I want the list that you see the bottom end of. I want that list. Duncan, I put in a comment shortly before the meeting. I think you had intended this to be kind of a 2-level hierarchy of types and examples.
And it is in another part of the document, and I didn't, or I screwed up somehow. You're right.
Yeah, so at least here, I don't think it's showing the way you intended.
I will fix that.
Yeah, I did put a comment on the first line in the markdown file.
Yeah, as you could tell, sort of by looking at them, they sort of grew in my getting creative on the thing. At the VEX meeting this morning, it sort of got shot down as, no, you can only use example.com in any example anywhere, because otherwise people are going to actually try to go to it and sue you later and stuff. And I was like, so I haven't exactly figured out how to resolve that yet.
Wow.
So and I have not read through this in detail. So for me, I would appreciate a week. I don't know about anybody else.
Sold. I don't object to taking it. This is more to get it into everyone's mind. If everyone was like, yeah, good enough and went on, I obviously wouldn't turn down it being approved today, but I could understand that it's a lot of information.
All right.
I can't guarantee I won't have other PRs filling in some of the actual use cases by next week, but let's at least get the README done by next week.
Okay. So looking at these PRs, it looks like these don't actually have.
Those are still draft. Those are not ready for approval.
Still draft. Okay, so we're still working on those. Look back at the project real quick. Takes too long to get to. Collaborative development model.
So that one is addressed in the contributing file that we just approved for merger.
Perfect.
So,
right? Yes.
So maintainers sort of get to run everything and they get to put their stuff on this list and move it along like you just did. Non-maintainers like me don't get to put stuff on this list. So we did just talk through several that one was even by maintainer, but didn't have to be on the list, that aren't on there. Could the maintainers actually like move the ones we did agree to done and put the one that we're waiting a week on and in progress? Because only you guys can add them to this list. So my point is, work goes on other than by the 4 maintainers, and they somehow have to get on this list.
Right. It's kind of annoying, actually, isn't it? Okay, so I moved the Vex use case over, collaborative development model over, and I'll close these momentarily or after the meeting. This one's done too, isn't it? Part of the contributing. Which membership model do we want to use?
Is that addressed in what we just in the PR you submitted, Dave?
I don't believe it is.
I don't think it is either.
Okay, so this one's
Not sure
still
where.
open.
I think it's just discussed in the issue, if I remember right.
Yes.
You could maybe argue it's implied by some of the stuff we inherited from OCA, but the OCA stuff's a little vague in that area also, so I'd prefer to be more explicit.
Okay. Oh, 1 second. I take a note for myself.
Actually, as I look at the notes on that issue, which is issue number 12, the notes on the issue suggest that we're happy with what's in the contributing document to address this. And I just merged the contributing document, PR, by the way.
Thank you.
I guess I'd like to keep it open and reread it because I think it is still possible for the rock throwers at our organization who claim this is just a couple companies getting together, not that we have a real governance process. I don't think we're explicit yet.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, so I'll keep this one open. Scope of work, I think, is a larger issue. I know this is way back from the beginning of December. I think, yeah, while we were discussing Log4j, we were wondering basically what the scope of our work is, right? So, and I guess at that point, we thought it would be ideal to have a vision or scope document created, but I don't know that.
I took
maybe
action.
that's
I have done
harder.
nothing in the intervening time. In the last week, that isn't where I focused last week.
Okay, and is it still relevant, I guess, is the question, because now we have the charter and.
Well, what kicked off the issue was this issue of somebody somewhere might be making the equivalent to the STIX certified, might be making an SBOM certified, and would we want to be part of that is still open. I could argue it is part within the scope. It is within the broad scope as written of our charter. Whether we want to actually do that or not is still open to debate. So we want to do it or let somebody else do it. Let a bunch of industry groups do it, which is the alternative at the moment. Some others are arguing for, the electric utility industry to do it and some other people like that to do it. I think it's an opportunity for Oasis, but again, it's sort of up to a larger group than me. And so I wrote a bunch of stuff up on that back in the December, November timeframe when it was a hot topic then. It's coming up again now. So, but I haven't rewritten it up to put it into something explicit for you guys to say yay or nay to.
Got it. All right, so I see three things that we want to commit to doing over the next week is reviewing the VEX use cases. If you haven't already, consider this anything additional for the membership model and this scope of work, right? So those three things, the pull request for the VEX use case and these two issues, I'd like to be able to come in next week and be prepared to basically adjudicate those three things. Does that sound good to people? Okay, cool. And then for the to-do items that are here, starting with the easy one, I think, like we need a Git Ignore file. Is there anybody who just wants to do that? Can do that. Is there something we have to consider first? I mean, it seems like something that should be pretty straightforward. But that's me.
I agree it's straightforward, but I got enough on my plate. I'm not volunteering for this one.
Got it.
Do it.
Okay, so I'm gonna put that over here. That was you, right, Sarah?
Sorry, yep.
No worries. Just making sure I heard correctly. Don't want the wrong people to be on here. There you are. That's it. I think the maintainers should get together and do this, but maybe we wait a week. And, give us time to actually get through these three things. Sorry, and this is number 9, the processing and maintaining the actual procedures for dealing with this step. And then governance process, is this something that's different? These are a month old, so my memory is failing me.
Governance is things like how do we pick who runs the meeting? How do we pick the maintainers? Who's allowed to participate? How do we make decisions at meetings? That's governance.
Okay. All right.
And again, there should be some OCA stuff to steal, but it isn't there yet itself. So we have some chicken and egg issues.
Okay. All right, let's stick with these three for next week. And then we'll approach these two. And then hopefully we'll start also getting some actual, code and component work reflected in here. That would be kind of cool. I'd like to see some, project management for that too, if that makes sense.
So I guess a question, I mean, I really want to get to what you just said, but is that going in the same repo or different, or we haven't even talked about that yet?
I mean, to me at this point, it can all live in one repo, but that's just me saying that almost without full knowledge of what's going on, right? Like there isn't actually any code in here at this point, right?
No, but if you look at the architecture diagram, for example, there's 3 parts to the PACE project. There's the PES, the PCS, and the PAR. Those could sort of all go together in the same repo as this, or they could go in something different. It's possible different organizations might come up with different reference code to compare to that. I really have no clue. I do know at least someone on this call has been chartered by someone to do some of that stuff, and maybe they could speak to how they'd like to see it. But I just think we should it might be premature to decide it until we have stuff to look at. I'll just pick on him. Dave Lemire, do you have thoughts on this topic?
At present, I do not, and I would definitely want my software team members to weigh in before I suggested any thoughts, because this is more their area of expertise and experience than mine.
Yeah, agreed. Same here.
I don't write code. I haven't written anything more complicated than an Office macro in probably 30 years.
My gut is we're going to end up with separate repositories for reference implementations and sort of keep the process. And oh, by the way, if these things are going to work together, we need to agree to this bit format here for these wires or whatever, the interface stuff in this one. But the actual, lines of, hey, Dave wants to write it in Java, I want to write it in Elixir, are probably different repos.
Yeah, I mean, those would have to be different repos almost certainly. And the reality is that as Pace grows, you probably are going to want separate repos. I mean, for example, I mean, Kestrel has like we're up to 4 or something. Like as you have, a library, you might want to have lib pace one place and the binary another. Let's do a code mechanics and how you want to lay things out. So the only reason I'm chiming in here is right now creating new repos in OCA is a needlessly heavyweight process. And just so folks know, I'm trying to get that fixed this week. So in Oasis, we have a board meeting this week where we're going to talk about lightening the rules for creating new repos in Oasis Open projects, because I don't see any reason the PGB needs to be concerned every time someone wants to make a new repo. But right now, until that change is made, right now they do need to be involved. So we're trying to get that addressed. It's just needlessly heavyweight to be bothering the PGB every time you want to make a repo. I'm advocating for the technical steering committee. I'm advocating that it should just be able to be delegated. So if the PGB delegates, okay, these people are allowed to authorize new repos, then it's done. And that's what I want to do. So they can just delegate to the maintainers. Any thoughts, questions, concerns while we're here on that?
Works for me, but I think your original point of, hey, don't actually go to make the repo till you know what you need is how I took what you said for now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well. I wouldn't go making things until you know what you need. Until it's actually needed. And we're trying to make it to that when and if you do come across that, it should be easy. Like the maintainers should be able to just make this decision. Because right now it's just needlessly heavyweight.
Okay. So I tried to capture that here, and it sounds like we might have to wait for the delegation thing to go through before we can actually make any decisions. But I think, like we just said, we're not quite ready for that yet, but it's something to start thinking about. Cool. All right. At this point, is there anything else that we have to discuss? I think something that I'm taking away from this is that I need to be more prepared before coming to this meeting, and I hope to be able to, actually I don't hope, I will, remind everybody about what we're going through probably midweek or late this week, so that when we get to Monday next week, hopefully we're more prepared. I might even have a different way of working through this thing, but one step at a time, I guess.
One thing I would suggest is if you could have some place that was the agenda that allowed, I could have stuck pull request, 20 and 24, and Dave could have stuck pull request 21 on that first section of the agenda, review any pull requests ready to approve. If you sort of have that somewhere where we can do it, we can help you do it. You don't have to do it all.
Would be nice. Okay. I'll look at that too. Awesome. All right, so if there's nothing else, then I think we know what we need to do this week, and we can see each other next week. And Ross, I'm going to reach out to you to try to figure out how to get this recording up on YouTube.
Yeah, let's do that. And let's fix your calendar issue too. We'll fix that.
Yeah, that'd be good. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Nothing else, then I'll stop the recording. And we'll see you all next week.